Welcome to the L'Dor Va-Dor Chat with Two Rabbis this evening. It's Tuesday, it's March 23rd, and it's Arnie's birthday, and it's also TBC's 65th birthday as well. But anyway, welcome Rabbi Barry, our wonderful rabbi, and welcome to our wonderful guest rabbi, Rabbi Zvi Kahn. We're so glad to have both of you with us tonight. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you. It's always great to be with Sharon. She's very enthusiastic and very supportive of all of our endeavors, and I really appreciate that. And I do love the beautiful sunset behind you. I'm reminded of sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. Rabbi Kahn, I'll let you begin the proceedings. This is another one of those Torah passages that might appeal to you a little more than it would to me, all the blood and the sacrifices and stuff, but I suspect you are a little bit queasy about some of it too, but go ahead.
Nothing queasy tonight. I'm gonna just give talk about one part of this week's Torah portion, which is called Tzav. And I think it's a really wonderful lesson that we can take from it. One of the sacrifices that is discussed in this week's Torah portion is called in Hebrew a shlamim. And in English, they often translate it as a peace offering, of course, from the word shalom. What's unique about this offering is that it is divided up. It is eaten and divided up in three different ways. The person who brings this offering gets to eat a part of it, and of the Kohanim, the priests, so to speak, who worked in the tabernacle and later in the temple in Jerusalem, also receive a portion to eat. And then a third portion is burnt on the altar that was in either the tabernacle early on or the temple later on. And the rabbis in the Talmud say the fact that it's divided up in that way is exactly the reason why it gets the name shlamim, of peace offering, because to truly bring peace to any group, you need to make sure that everyone's needs are being met. If you have a situation where there's a group and some people's needs are being met, but not other people's needs, that's not going to bring, there's not going to be a lot of harmony. There's not going to be a great community feeling. But in this case, all of the stakeholders, so to speak, that were involved with this particular sacrifice received a portion, and therefore it's called shlamim. It brought peace, it brought harmony, it brought a feeling of togetherness. And this kind of sacrifice was often brought on the different holidays. We're, of course, about to celebrate the great holiday of Passover, the holiday of Festival of Freedom. And when people would come to bring offerings, they would often bring this type of sacrifice because it allowed them to take some of the meat and share that with their families and their neighbors. And it allowed them also to provide some meat for the people who worked in the temple, the Kohanim. And it also, part of it, of course, went on the altar as well. So I just love that idea about when you think peace, think making sure everyone's needs are met, and then you're on the right track.
Hey, Rabbi Kahn, I'm in agreement with you. I do like the concept of giving an offering to express your gratitude for your blessings. That's part of this passage. It's a very important part. And a lot of times when things are going well, people don't really think much of it. Well, they're supposed to go this way. So what? They only talk to God if things are going wrong or they want something. But it's good when things are going well to give thanks. As far as everybody's needs met, you're right, sort of. I mean, the needs of the priest and the people were met. The needs of the animal weren't met, though, because he's killed. So maybe we can transform that so that everybody's needs are met. But the concept is good. If you're doing well, bringing something, sharing it with the priesthood, and letting them divvy it up to other people to enjoy, that's a very good concept. As far as the altar goes, the altar is kind of bloody, so maybe we can alter it so that it becomes a little less gruesome. So I agree with you, Rabbi Kahn, on the merits of this passage. There's a whole lot of detail about how to do certain sacrifices, which I guess I could do without, but the concept of giving thanks is a good one. Anybody else want to weigh in on this or on anything else going on? And then I know Rabbi Kahn wants to bring up certain subjects. Go ahead, Sharon.
So did they only sacrifice animals, or would they have brought would they have brought vegetables or fruits of their harvest? Would they have brought that as a sacrifice as well, or only
Yeah.
animals?
Yeah, this passage is pretty specific about a whole bunch of different things. It's not just the animals. That's just what I focused in on because it caught my attention. You're actually sacrifice matzahs. It says that it refers to matzot, and it also refers to chametz. So there's bread that's leavened and unleavened bread and boiled flour and olive oil and grains and all types of stuff. So meat was just a part of it. This passage explains all these different types. Also, I find interesting is that it says Torat Zavach, Zavachim. Torah just means teaching. It's related to the word more or mora, teacher. So it's referring to the Torat Zavachim, the Torah or the teachings about the sacrifices. There's another indication that the word Torah that we have wasn't initially used to describe this entire document. Torah meant a teaching, and then eventually it became the Torah or the teaching. But you'll see it has Torat about 8 different times, the Torah, and then it goes on to all the different types of sacrifices of different things. Yeah, anybody else? All right, Rabbi Khan, go ahead. Tell what else is on your mind tonight.
Thank you. I want to invite everyone, if people would like to just talk about Passover Seders that they attended, maybe as children, maybe their own Passover Seders that they run now. I'm always fascinated by the fact that people have such different customs and different ways of handling the Seder. In my own classes, I always would ask the kids, and I would say, what do you use for karpas, for the vegetable dipped in the salt water? And the amount of answers that I got, you would never believe it. Potatoes, radishes, scallions, onions, celery, so many different vegetables. And that would open up a discussion that I would have with the kids about, tell me other things you do at your Seder that you think are unique, that are memorable to you, that have a special meaning to you. And there's such, families bring just different things to the table, literally, especially families from different countries or different backgrounds or different traditions. So I thought maybe it would be nice with Passover starting a few days from now to just open it up and give people a chance to share any recollections they might have from Seders when they were children, or things pressed from the present time and things they're planning to do.
Emily, go ahead.
Emily.
Okay. My father's family, including my father, were born in the Ukraine. They came here when my father was little. My grandmother came with 3 little boys that she said were 6. She said they were triplets because you could start school at 6. Anyway, Seders at their house started at 6 o'clock and went past midnight. And we were all hungry, and the kids would fall asleep with their heads on the table. And and they spoke very little English. It was all Yiddish. They never learned English. My grandfather's profession was he sat on the porch and davened, and my grandmother ran a store and owned apartment houses, and that was the way it was supposed to be. Now that would be the first night. The second night, we would go to my mother's family, who had also immigrated to the United States, but from Montreal a couple of generations later. And it was very anglicized. It was very, food at that one was mostly stuff that was brought in, except for my grandmother, who made gefilte fish from the buffalo carp that was swimming in her bathtub. And yeah, you just would not believe that. But it was like 2 totally different worlds. It was interesting.
Yeah, Emily. Sharon, go ahead.
So like what Emily started with, the first Seder at our house, we always had the family Seder at our house when I was growing up. And it would go all the way, tables would be set in our large dining room and all the way into the living room and even into the foyer. The kids would wind up being the furthest away from the men. The men, again, it would start 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever time sundown was, and it would go way past midnight.
Yeah.
Again, just like Emily said, us kids would be with our heads down into the plates, waiting and hungry Usually my mom would give us some soup to break it, to tide us over. I don't recall exactly other things other than she did. Emily just brought up a memory about gefilte fish. And yes, my mother made it from live fish. And yes, she had them in a tub. She didn't have them in the bathtub. But she would say to me, because she knew I hated the smell of the fish as she was making it. It was okay once it was pickled or whatever you do to that. But she would say, Sharon, I'm about to make gefilte fish today. Go to your friend's house. So I would be off, and I'd sneak back like 3 hours later. Mom, is it okay to come in? And she'd say, yes, I'm done. And she'd have the grinder, which would hook onto the side of the table with the bolt on the bottom, and she'd be doing the grinding. And yeah, I remember all those things. And to bring up a point, we've been using, I don't recall what we used growing up, but we use the greens from the spring onions for our car puffs and the salt water. And I see other people using celery or greens and I found something interesting because I sent out an email the other day with several Haggadahs on it for everybody to be able to open and print. A 2-minute Haggadah, a 2-minute Seder, a little too short for me, a 30-minute Seder, and a few 60-minute Seders. But one of the things was interesting, and I know as Barry's a vegetarian, for vegetarians, it mentioned that instead of the shank bone, you could use a baked or a broiled beet, a fresh beet. And I thought that was interesting. And then I always thought it was interesting on the Seder plate, it's got 2 areas for greens. Right. And it explained, and it's going to be in the video on Friday night for Shabbat and pre-Passover, that you can, a lot of people put romaine lettuce on the one and they put the onions or the celery in the other and give people a choice to dip. Oh. And I had never heard that before. I would put my orange in that extra area.
Now, I have a question for Emily and Sharon. When you were at this Seder that went on past midnight and you fell asleep, did they do the Afikomen when you woke up, or did they just forget?
Oh yeah, we always did the Afikomen, and everybody, all the men at the table had to give whoever found the Afikomen $1.
Right. That's right.
Was it just one person who found it?
We were quite wealthy because there was a lot of people at that table.
Yeah.
So was it just one Afikomen, or did everyone?
One.
They wrapped it in my mom's, linen or cloth napkins, and sometimes it would be tucked under somebody's chair, or they would kind of be sitting against it. Wasn't allowed to break though.
Only one person got the Afikomen, and everybody and all the other kids didn't.
Yeah.
And the thing that bothered me, I guess, as I got older and went to other Passover Seders, that the whole philosophy of every kid has to have a trophy. So then every kid had to get a piece of the Afikomen. We were not like that. You looked for it, and the one who found it was the winner, and the rest of you didn't, and that was okay.
Yeah, we were fine with that.
What do you think, Rabbi Khan? Is that good to have one kid rewarded and everybody else goes home?
If you think I'm going to get in the middle of that question, absolutely no way. I can tell you this: the way that I grew up, every kid found the Afikomen, got the prize, and there was no 2 ways about it. And
oh my gosh!
You look forward to the next year, and you thought,
exactly. And you know what? We're all better people.
but then once I got married, my wife's tradition, her family tradition was whoever found it shared the prize with the other kids. So that's the way we did it. And so we've got the 2 different traditions going on.
What does the Talmud have to say about it?
I don't know. Maybe the Talmud doesn't want to get in the middle of that one also.
I remember my dad always used to do the service, and he used to talk about the goats, and he used to do the questions. And I remember once my cousins were over, and we had crazy cousin Philip, Okay, he was a little off. So we remember we got the Afikoman. My father knew that we were taking it from behind where he was sitting, and Philip was going to hide the Afikoman for the whole kids. So he was going to hide the Afikoman. Well, came later on that night. We're all tired. We all wanted the Afikoman because my father always gave money. Okay, so everybody's looking for the Afikoman, and Philip is sitting there on the chair, and he's just wagging his feet. He's shuffling them back and forth, sitting on the chair, and he's just as happy as a little lark because my father couldn't find the Afikoman. So everybody says, well, where is the Afikoman? And Philip said, I ate it. Nobody could find it then. My father gave everybody $1.
Oh, good, good.
Anybody else? Anybody
Hi,
want to share
welcome,
some
Joe.
memories?
Welcome, Raylene.
Yeah, there was a Larry David episode on Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry hid the matzah, but his friend saw him do it. So his friend told his children where it was. And the kids ran into the dining room where everybody was seated. And they yelled out, we found it, we found it. Larry David says, no, you didn't. Your father told you where it was. They wouldn't give him the money. So yeah, that's the way it happened. Funny.
Yeah, that's in the fine print. You don't get money for Afikoman if somebody told you where it was. It doesn't count. All right, Rabbi Khan, I know you wanted to talk about Israel, I believe, and I know Harris must have some news from Israel about the elections, right? What's your thoughts on that, Rabbi Khan?
Just before we leave the Seder and talk about the Afikoman, I do want to ask this question. It sounds like everybody had set up where the, let me just see how we're doing it. The Afikoman is hidden by the adults and the children try to find it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Was anyone ever at a Seder where the opposite was done? The children found took the Afikoman and hid it, and the adults had to find it. Has anyone?
Never.
Yeah, that
No.
was what happened when my cousin Philip took it. He took it because we were going to hide it. My father was going to have to look for it.
Right,
Okay.
right,
It was
right, right.
reversed, and that's why he ate it. So my father couldn't find it.
Yeah, I was a long time ago. I was with a different family for a Seder, and the kids hid it, and the adults looked for it. And I thought, wow, I had never seen that before. I never knew that was a thing. The problem is the adults tend to give up a lot faster than
The
the
kids.
children are looking for the Afikoman. Anyway, it's just great. I think it's fantastic that there's so many different traditions that we remember and that we pass on to our kids and our grandkids and et cetera. So in terms of the Israeli elections, I think it's the saddest thing is that I think this is the, what number? This is like the fourth election in 2 years, and Israel it's not good for the country that this process keeps going without some clear-cut decisions. I don't know how this one's going to turn out. What I'm seeing in the early polls is that it looks similar to previous results, where the Likud, that's Netanyahu's party, will get a majority, but they won't have they won't have the 61 minimum. Obviously, they won't be near that number, so they'll have to try to form a coalition. And other groups, it's going to be more complicated. So I hope things become clearer after this election, so Israel can move ahead in a more healthy way than having elections every 6 months or every 8 to 10 months.
Yeah, go ahead, Harris.
Well, I read the election, as you know, is going on right now. And Netanyahu is favored to win the election, which is, I think, unfortunate. But as far as Israel is concerned, they're in really good shape. The United States gives more aid for arms to Israel than any other country. And as I mentioned before, Israel has an army base there, which I think is very important. And they also have the Iron Dome, which is very, very effective. And I think they're in a really good position, and they keep bombing Syria constantly. And there is no reprisals from Syria. So I can't understand it. And Iran is out of the picture. They're not doing anything to Israel. And so I think right now, Israel is in pretty good shape.
Yeah, what do you think, Harris, about the Biden administration? A lot of the right wingers saying it's going to be horrible now. The Biden administration has anti-Israeli people on it. What do you think?
The first thing I looked at to see if they still had an army base there, and it's in a place called Mashalon, and it's still there. And I don't see any problem with Biden right now. There's nothing, no problem at all. And Israel is a very, very strong country right now. So I don't see a problem.
I got a call from a friend of mine, David Badin, who's in Israel. He's a right-wing pundit and has news programs that he does throughout the world. And he contacted me to say that it's really important for American Jews to take a stand against the funding of the Palestinian schools and the UN agencies that are operating in Palestine or in the Palestinian areas that are actually rewarding Palestinians for killing Israelis by giving a stipend to the families and giving them money. And this is despicable, and I'm not sure that the Biden administration will speak out against it. President Trump vehemently opposed it and prevented American money from being used for that purpose. And I'm hoping that the Biden administration will do the same. I'm not sure if that's going to take place, but we should all urge the Biden administration not to give a dime to the Palestinians or to the UN relief agencies if they're using it for that purpose. The schools are also still teaching some pretty bad stuff about Jews in Israel. And so I hope we'll speak out about that.
Biden already said he's going to resume the aid to the Palestinians, and I think that's okay. And lately, there hasn't been too many Israelis murdered. I haven't seen anything in the Israeli newspapers about anybody getting killed lately. So, but the poor Palestinians need some type of support.
Oh, I agree with you. They need some support, but it shouldn't be a blanket check that's going to be used to reward people who are killing Israelis. There should be some type of understanding. If we're going to give you money, you have to, as a minimum, say that you're not going to kill innocent Israelis and reward the families for it. I don't think that's too much to ask if we're giving them money.
Well, we have to see what's going to happen with the Palestinian election. If Abbas is out, things might change completely. And I hope they get rid of him. And like I said at the last meeting, he has stored millions in Switzerland. So that might come up and they might throw him out.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if anybody.
His wife's living in a condo somewhere in Paris from off of the money. They bought beautiful property. So, you know, it's a pattern. It's a pattern.
Yeah.
This country, unfortunately, has a habit of throwing money at a problem instead of fixing the problem, or instead of following the money and have somebody from this end administrate the money to make sure it goes where it's supposed to go. But of course, I'm being too realistic. Stupid me. I don't see banks giving money to Americans and just saying, here, have a ball, go where you want. You have to say what you're going to do with it if you're going to get a loan. So why is our government doing this with other countries when we can't get it from our own banks? Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
You know, really.
Well, I think they should have black reparations. I think the United States should donate millions to black colleges. Yes. They need reparations, however you say it, for what happened to African Americans during slavery and so forth. And nothing has been done. And the United States have given the Japanese something, and they gave American Indians, but they haven't done anything for people of the black race. So what's your comment? Go ahead, Emily.
Sid, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Emily.
This is a very unusual position for me to take because it's very conservative. I am against reparations for anybody. If there's anybody that should get reparations for having been treated badly, it's the 50%, 51% of the population that are female. We were paid less than others. We were, you know, put upon for forever and ever. And I don't see anybody offering us reparations for having been taken advantage of for many thousands of years. I think we should move forward, treat everyone well, treat everyone with kindness, have equal pay for equal work. If you start going back and giving reparations for, I think you're right, Harris. If it's Native Americans, my God, the Cherokee March, they were not given any money. I think that we're gonna move forward. Stop looking back. Just a thought. I know that that's a very unpopular feeling, and everybody feels that money should be given, but I don't see anybody giving money to women.
I'll send you a check, Emily.
Thanks, Harris. I'll take you out to dinner with the check.
Well, that just brings
Outside.
it right around to my point. You know, we throw money at everything thinking it's going to fix something. What you have to fix is people's societal attitudes. I mean, I'm not going to punish my son for something that happened 200 years ago. I mean, when you're saying reparations, you're taking our tax dollars. And right now, you know, we're spending a whole lot of money trying to keep this country afloat. This is the situation we're in right now. And I'm not saying what happened was wrong. And I'm not saying we shouldn't learn from it. We should look into it. We should learn from it, but I'm not going to punish people 200 years later for something that's done in the past. That's
Thank
not
you.
right to current people. We wouldn't do it, and we shouldn't be doing it. And look what's happening now. Look what's happening to our educational system. We're not teaching history, so we're not learning what was done in the past, so we can't stop it from happening in the future. If you want to throw money at anything, throw it into education. And teach children what has happened, and teach children civics, which is not being taught anymore, and teach children how to balance a budget, which is not being taught. I remember when I was in school, we had a penny here, a penny there for savings account. We learned what it was to save money. Things, basic fundamentals, in my opinion, based on my grandchildren and what I'm seeing, are not being taught. So let's throw money at the situation. Maybe we'll quiet people down. That's not the answer, in my opinion. That's just not the answer.
Well, sorry, I had to step out for a minute. Had an important call. I had to take it. Looks like
Oh,
there's
you missed everything. I'll say it all over again.
I kind of caught the drift. The drift is that people are not crazy about reparations. That doesn't seem to make sense. Yeah, my views on that are that reparations for one group of people doesn't make sense. If you were going to try to give reparations, it would invite a morass, an impossible task, because like who's black and who isn't black? If you're half black or a quarter black, then what do you get? What if you're Chinese? You get
Exactly.
reparations for that. What if you're Jewish and we were discriminated against, or Puerto Rican or something? Or I mean, it goes on and on and on. I don't necessarily agree though that the past is the past and let's just learn from it. There are people who have suffered in the past, and the suffering continues to today. There's legacies of racism and discrimination that persist today. I don't believe that the way to deal with it is by throwing money at it or giving reparations. That's impractical and impossible. But I mean, Jewish people are still suffering from discrimination and anti-Semitism. We should do something about it, but we shouldn't write a check. We should try to hold in check some of these tendencies. As I've mentioned before to this group, I believe the school board is teaching that the Jewish people turned Jesus over to the Romans for crucifixion and other crazy things. And education by itself isn't the answer. It's actually factual education, which is fairly hard to come by these days. But that's the way to deal with these problems. What else should we talk about? Anybody else? What about
Well,
yeah,
okay.
go ahead, Harris.
I just want to mention that the Rockefellers have Jewish blood in them. I don't know if you're all aware of that.
Okay.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
One of them married a Jewish woman. And so they have Jewish blood. I just wanted to mention it. The Rockefellers have Jewish blood. So that's it.
That's good to know. It's good to have them on our side.
Well, another very interesting point with what's been going on with Harry and Meghan and this whole racial thing. I don't think a lot of people realize that King George, way back during colonial times, was married to a black woman. I don't think people realize that. You know, they have a history. Crazy King George, who lost the colonies, if you will. You know, Queen Charlotte, and that's who the child Charlotte, the girl, William and Kate's girl, is named after her. She was a Black woman.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, Moses too married a Black woman too. Seems to be pretty fashionable. Yeah.
Valerie, I'm not familiar with that. How did that play out, like diplomatically? I mean, that was totally fine at that time. Everyone was comfortable with it. Was she from a royal?
Yes.
Her lineage? What was her background? I never even heard that. I've not heard that story. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, most people don't realize it.
I think she was Spanish royalty and part of the Moors.
The
You know,
Moorish,
and the
the Moor-
Moors
Mhm.
came to Spain from Africa across,
Hmm.
you know.
May I say something?
Of course.
Sure, Sid.
You know, I can only speak for myself, and I am totally in favor of reparations. And I want to tell you why. Because for too long, we have been like doing the trickle down thing. You know, maybe you ought to try trickling up. And that would be an argument for reparations.
How would it work? Like if you're part Black, or if you're Black and you came in the last 20 years, or if you're Chinese, I mean, how would the reparations work in your opinion? Would it just
Well,
be
I
for
believe
Black
that
people?
Black people need to, you know, have get a hand. This, you know, the racism has really hurt a lot of millions of people, and I don't know how you would do it, but I think that it should be done.
Yeah. Yeah, how it would be done in practice is difficult. You know, we do make amends in some ways by having programs to help the poor, and we go into try to do work in the inner cities to try to help Blacks, but it's definitely not enough. There's something definitely needs to be done, because the vestiges of racism are still there. I agree with you, Sid. It's not like, hey, you know, you were slaves a while back, get over it. The vestiges are definitely still there. But I'm not sure that writing a check to people, it'd be very, very, very difficult to figure out how to do it.
Well, we just recently wrote a check to everyone.
That's true.
Good point. And that worked out. That was pretty smooth. Yeah. Good point.
I didn't get it.
A couple checks to everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true.
And I'm sure we all need it, and more people need it than others. Unfortunately, looking down the road, my kid, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, your grandchildren, they're paying for it. Somebody's going to pay for this. This is not free money. So our progeny, if you will, our children and our children's children, they're going to wind up paying for this one way or another. They are paying for it. We put this on their shoulders. You know, I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad, but that's a fact.
Are you sure it's not free money?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty somewhere down the line, the piper is going to want to get paid.
Yeah.
Raylene has her hand raised. Go ahead, Raylene.
I was just wondering how much would you intend to pay each Black person? Because I don't know, what is a few $100s for each person gonna do for them?
No, I think it should go to the colleges, the Black colleges, for free education.
That's a good idea. I kind of
That's
like
a
that.
that's a great idea.
Well, then I wanted to go to the yeshiva, and I wanted to go to the Hindu university, and I wanted, well, it opens a Pandora's box. A lot of colleges have donations, charitable funding. They have backers, they have alumni, they have grants. A lot of colleges, I know the Black College, Howard University has gotten many, many, many grants. You know, so there are conduits for that. Minority schools, minority pupils, there are conduits for that. And those have to be explored and possibly funded more than they are now. But just giving money away does not work. That's proof, it's been proven. You know?
I think Wendy has her hand raised. Go ahead, Wendy.
A couple of things. The facts that you talk about.
We're
Are you
getting
static?
feedback. Wendy, we're getting feedback.
All right, hold on.
Unmute yourself, Wendy.
I was unmuted on the other one. Okay,
Okay, you're good.
anyway, in terms of the reparations, they had mentioned the other day that the first town to be paying reparations was Evanston, Ohio.
No,
That is
Evanston,
now-
Illinois.
Evanston, Illinois, I'm
Suburb of
sorry, and they're
Chicago.
paying 25,000 per black person. No, he's gonna contradict me.
Excuse me. It's not the same it's not what we were just talking about. These go back to 1900 and forward to about the 1980s, and it has to do with the segregation and the housing and other things that took place in the suburbs of Evanston. I happen to be very familiar with the suburb because Northwestern University is there. I went to school there, and I
All
lived
right, what reparations are you talking about?
That's the reparations. It's the word reparations is okay, but it's not the same as what they're talking about with reparations for the black people going back to slavery. These have to do with while the community was in existence since 1905, I believe, or 1907 when it was chartered. It has to do with how they treated the black people in the community relative to housing, work-related, education, things of that nature. And that's what this money is for. You can go deeper into it. So it shouldn't be compared exactly the same as what they're talking about with reparations going back to slavery.
All right, let me mention something else.
Different situation.
As different people are mentioning that our kids will pay or our grandkids will pay, but this money we're getting now with the stimulus checks, somebody's paying. I'm looking at it from the perspective that if you're living in countries like different countries in Europe, how many, or even in Canada, I'm sorry, I lost some people there. In Canada, you're getting, your taxes are higher, but everybody has health care. Everybody gets like 6 months off when they have a baby. I was talking to my daughter about, has so-and-so gone back to work because in the UK now, the virus is so bad. And she said, well, she was home for 6 months with the baby and now she's going back to work and her husband's getting to stay home for 6 months with the baby because all of that is paid for. Yes, they pay higher taxes, but they do get something for it. All right.
That's why those countries are going broke right now.
That's right. They pay upwards of 70% in taxes, and it's called cradle to grave coverage. And that's also why you have so many people from Canada trying to come into the United States for medical treatment, because when they have an ailment that has to be treated, and there's a 6 to 10 month waiting period just to see a primary physician because there's no room and they can't get to see it, they come to the United States for treatment.
Right, I disagree. I have friends in Canada. I was just talking to one the other day who had a high-risk pregnancy, who had a baby and has had all these issues with the baby being sick, with her being sick. They both were in the hospital for months. And she said, if you've got something emergent, they will take you. Because I mentioned to her, I knew somebody who needed bypass surgery and, he had to wait 6 months. And she said, if it's something, emergent, you're pushed up the list. And the friends, my daughter has very close friends that live in Germany and live in the UK, and they're living there permanently, and they're happy with the benefits that they have. So
okay.
The proof is very simple. How many people in these countries that have socialized medicine, how many of them say, let's give up our system, let's go with the American system, where you have to pay through the nose for medical care, and if you don't have enough money, you die or you stay sick? How many people in Canada say, hey, you know what? Let's give up this system. We like the American system. How many people in France? How many in Israel? Nobody. The ones who are coming to the United States are people who are usually fairly wealthy and they can afford something that's not available there. So it's true that some people will find things here that they don't have there. But the vast majority of people, the overwhelming number of the population, are very happy with their system and have no interest in trading their system for ours. Rabbi Khan, is there anything that you'd like to share as far as a Passover message? What can we learn, or what is Passover telling us this year?
No, I think there's so much there that's, but just the one thing that I would say is the idea of family. I can't think of anything that happens in Judaism that's more about the family and the family being together and coming together and trying to have not just one generation, 2 generations, 3 generations. So, to whatever degree is possible. And of course, with COVID still around and with families living in different cities, it's hard. But to the degree that's possible, sharing our Passover Seder, sharing our Passover traditions with as many of our family members as we can, and as many generations of families as we can. I just think it's one of the things that holds the Jewish people together. And so I focus on that a lot.
Yeah, Rabbi Khan, I couldn't agree with you more. The family is the center stage of this Passover holiday, and it really reminds us, and many of us have great memories of being with the family. You asked about my memory. My memory is just going out to Wilmington, Delaware, where my dad's family was, and hearing Yiddish spoken and hearing just a lot of laughter and joy and celebration of freedom. And it's a beautiful holiday that celebrates the family. Also, many people don't know, we have a stay home order now with the COVID. The first stay home order was in the Torah when it says stay home and celebrate Shabbat. The first order to wash your hands frequently is on Passover, where it says you should wash your hands over and over again. The first time it said that you should concern yourself with nutrition and eating and drinking the right foods was when it says drink 4 cups of wine. Wine has resveratrol in it, which helps build up your immune system against disease. So Passover was really a holiday that was made to try to combat the virus, not just the coronavirus, but the virus of apathy and cynicism and idolatry. And it's a beautiful holiday to celebrate freedom. And each one of us can take the opportunity on Passover to celebrate and to think, how can we best utilize this freedom that we have in this country and our precious heritage? What can we do now that we're going to be emerging from the coronavirus soon, and we'll be able to reestablish connections? How can we take advantage of this opportunity and build back better and do things better this time after some reflection? That's what we should be thinking about on Passover. Go ahead, Emily.
Unmute. Emily, unmute.
Okay, I wanted to show everyone this book, but it's coming out backwards. It's called A Paragon, and it's a story. It's a novel, but it's historically based. It's a story of 2 men in Israel, a Palestinian and an Israeli, and both of them have lost preteen daughters to violence. The Israeli lost his daughter to a rubber bullet that was fired, and the Palestinian to a human bomb. And these 2 men are now traveling around the world speaking on how to deal with loss and how to connect with your enemy. And so I just thought it's an interesting book. It's written by somebody named Colin McCann, who is obviously not Jewish and not Palestinian, but it's called A Paragon. So
Can you put it in the chat, Emily? Can you type it into the chat and I'll put it in a voice?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Emily. That's a really great story. It seems to me that the Israeli teen was killed by the Israelis and that the Palestinian teen was killed by the Palestinians.
It might have been. I haven't gotten that far. So
yeah, because the Israelis use rubber bullets and the Palestinians use human bombs. So it seems like they might have been killed by their own people, each one. Yeah. All right, go ahead, Sharon.
So my brother-in-law's cousin, who lives in England and is pretty high up in their little synagogue that they have there, and they're not able to meet either, like us. They're Reformed synagogue, and they're having a virtual Seder that they've invited us to. So on Sunday afternoon at 1:30. So we're going to partake and be able to see them and And I think that'll be very interesting because they might have some totally different customs that we're used to because they're in England. You never know. And I think it'll be pretty interesting to see their Seder from their point of view. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, England are the people of the covenant, because covenant in Hebrew is Berit. So the Beritish are the people of the
British.
covenant.
Oh.
And maybe they're the lost
Bada bing,
tribe.
bada boom. The
Anyway, it's good to be with
British.
everybody. We had a good time finally meeting together at the Shabbat celebration over in the park. It's really nice to get people together. We're going to try to do the same thing in April. We're not exactly sure where it's going to be, but we're pretty sure that it will be. And we'll be celebrating Earth Day and maybe working with Sierra Club and having a good time. I thank everybody for supporting these outdoor events, and we'll be doing more of them in the future. We also hope to have a Passover Seder virtually for everybody. I'm working on it as we speak, trying to master the technology. And so stay tuned, and we should have a nice Passover Seder for you also. Rabbi Khan, as usual, Todah Rabbah. Great to see you. Thanks. Everybody else who's on the line here, thank you all for joining us and participating. And for our board members on here, thank you very much for all your support. We got some good board members here who show up for our activities, and we're very grateful to them as well. So thank you, everybody.
Barry,
I want to wish everybody a
Barry?
Zizan Pesach, a sweet
wait,
Passover.
Barry,
Peter
Barry?
wants to say something.
Yes.
Go ahead, Peter.
thumbs up, I got it, thumbs up.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
All right, have fun, everybody.
Hugs
You
and
too.
Thank you,
Thank you.
rabbis.
Sameach.
Both rabbis to have a very sweet Passover.
to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Rabbi Khan, will you be with us next week, or is there anything about Passover not being able to?
I hope to be. Some friends of ours and some are coming into Orlando, and so we might go up there, and I might be just running around and traveling a little too much to do it, but I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks. Thanks,
Thanks a
Rabbi.
lot, Rabbi Khan. Have a good